click that next button. Don't even think about clicking on a different podcast, because that is Effin Weird is here to bring you a wealth of knowledge today.
Welcome back to That is Effin Weird. Today, Clark is going to be talking about some history. From what I understand, this might be a new series from the things that he has cooking up. But before we start talking about all that interesting stuff, let's introduce everybody. I'm Stevenson the Longbottom.
What's up? I'm Clark, aka the Reverend Michael Snakebite.
And today we have a guest on. Yeah, sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead, introduce yourself.
I'm Matthew Handy.
And welcome to the show. Matthew, before we get started, do you want to tell the audience just a little bit about yourself and, you know, what drew you to the show?
So I was in the never-ending rabbit hole that is Reddit and found your guys' post. And I was like, okay, this is definitely something I definitely want to see what this is about. Ultimately, what got me here is that I recently got sober in the last 5 years and now own a treatment center, and I'm starting my own podcast soon. So I was in the podcast exchange subreddit, and that's where I saw you guys.
Awesome. We're glad that you're here. Glad what you're doing and everything like that. That's amazing. I'm really excited for you to see what Clark has to bring to the table. We were talking a little bit before the show. He said he's the Debbie Downer of kind of the show, or the realist, but I would argue that he always has really cool things to say. So without further ado, Clark, what are you going to talk to us about today?
All right, so I was telling the guys off camera, I don't really know what kind of sparked this idea. Probably something that came on TV, or I always watch old episodes of Unsolved Mysteries and things like that, and constantly in the news we're seeing like excavations and research into like old legends and things like that, trying to get new evidence and solve mysteries. And it kind of popped in my head just how many great legends we have, at least in American history. This is what I'm going to focus on today, that are actually ridiculously easy to solve, or have been solved, and just we conveniently ignore that. And sometimes it's just so obvious and in your face when you hear the answer, you're like, wow, that just makes a lot of sense. And like we said earlier, it's kind of a Debbie Downer thing. I've done this once or twice on the show where I've kind of been like, yeah, that's a great legend and everything, but here's some facts. I can't help it sometimes when it's the same with like a good ghost story. Sometimes it's so good you don't want to interrupt it, but then when you hear the truth behind it, kind of just everything crumbles like a house of cards. So I decided to pick 3 famous American legends, mysteries, and talk about those today, and just how easily solvable they actually are, whether or not we can conclusively say they are solved with evidence. It's pretty much an Occam's razor situation where the easily explainable portion of the mystery should be the solution. And people just want to keep it going, I think, out of that, I guess, desire for a good tale. So any questions before we start, guys?
I would say, okay, all right, you're kind of right with the whole Debbie Downer part, because I'm thinking back in like the Enoch Brown episode that you headed up. Your audience members, if you're unaware of that one is the supposedly the first like school, I guess, shooting, quote unquote. If you go and listen to the episode, I'll go more into that, but I'll give you credit. Okay, yes, that one, but I don't feel like you're totally the Debbie Downer. I always feel like you got good stuff to say and everything. So, but other than that, no, I think I'm good. What about you, Matthew?
I'm good. Ready to get this on.
All right. Well, the Enoch Brown story was just sad in general. So
yes.
All 3 of these stories, I'd say 2 of them can be sad if you dwell on them too long, but one of them, see there being really anything wrong with it. So I'm going to save the one that I actually really want to talk about for third. I was going to lead off with it, but I'm going to start with Amelia Earhart.
Ooh.
So, little background for those listening in. 1937, Amelia Earhart decides to become the first female aviator to fly around the world, and she decides to go on a route following the equator, or closest to the equator she can. So, for those of you who own a globe, this is the longest way you can actually go around the Earth. So, it will be the longest journey that anyone had made up to this point. So, she takes off, has a little stopover in Los Angeles, does a bunch of photo shoots, all these things. There's a big fanfare, and she takes off for the longest leg of the journey, which is across the Pacific. During this part of the journey, she is in contact with a Coast Guard cutter called the Itasca, and she's supposed to be sending down radio messages, getting weather reports, getting, speed, ground speed, all that kind of stuff. Just basic information any aviator would need, and giving that over to her navigator, Fred Noonan. At some point, she is supposed to land at a place called Howland Island to refuel. On the way there between New Guinea and Howland Island, she reports that she's running low on fuel, can't see anybody. Eventually, the Itasca loses radio contact with her, and she disappears altogether. It's assumed she crashed somewhere in the ocean, but the plane is never found, nor are Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan. Immediately, mysteries and legends start calling up. They say people have witnessed, they saw her on Saipan, or they've seen the Japanese captured her, a fishing boat came across her and turned her over to Japanese authorities. There's pictures that have come out saying this is probably her on Nikamororu Island. There's even pictures of possibly her Electra DC-10 that's like being craned out of the water and things like that. So there's all kinds of evidence saying, oh, this has to be her. She must have crashed here. She survived the crash. Was she captured? Was she executed? All kinds of things like that. And that's the general legend. So what do you guys think of the Amelia Earhart mystery in general?
Matthew, do you want to go first? Or do you want me to?
So I'm 36. This has been something that I've heard about since I was a child, right? And from my point of view and everything that I've ever heard, it's always been nobody knows, right? Nobody's ever had like definitive proof or anything like that. And then it's like there are people that have made these claims, and it just kind of points to me, at least, to the fact that even when we have definitive proof on stuff, unless we are there, there's always the people, especially with AI and like all this stuff today, it's like we'll never actually know. I don't know what to believe. Like sometimes I see things today and it's like, is that even a real person?
I would agree with Matthew's statement in the fact that like we live in this era of time where it's so easy to create fake images. Shit, I saw like the thumbnail of a movie, Top Gun 3 with Tom Cruise, and it looked legit and everything. But obviously it was fake. It was AI generated and everything. So I feel like for it to be, I guess, legit that she would still be alive or something like that, it would had to have been something where someone took a picture of her with actual film back in the day. I guess my first like thought or question would be, if she was alive and she wasn't captured or anything like that, why didn't she make efforts to try to get back to the mainland where she was trying to get going, or like go back to where she came from? Like to me, it doesn't make sense that if she was still alive, she wouldn't have made the efforts. But then again, if it is something where she did crash, and ended up on an island, or someone captured her or something like that, it's very possible that they didn't want anyone to know that she was alive. I don't know. I think the easiest explanation and the most logical one is that she probably did crash somewhere in the ocean, and that's that. I personally don't think that she made it out alive, as sad as it is. I don't think she did, but I think you might have something else to say about that, Clark.
Please tell me it has something to do with the ice wall.
It would be interesting if she ran headlong into an ice wall and that's what happened. But sadly, no. This is pretty easy. As far as why Amelia Earhart crashed, since this was such a well thought out, well planned expedition, I guess you could call it. Unfortunately, she was basically killed by math. So, in 1937, one thing they did not know about that we do know about today is the jet stream and how it behaves in the Pacific. So her fuel that she was expected to have to make it all the way to Howland Island ultimately meant nothing, because she was running headlong into a headwind that she didn't know even existed. No one did at the time. So there's no way she could have known the route she was taking ultimately would be her downfall, no matter how much they planned her fuel and distance for that plane. So what happened? The reason she said running low on fuel, can't see any land, should be right on top of Howland Island. Well, no, she was probably 100 miles away easily, because she was, like I said, being held back by drag, by physics. So
interesting.
Most likely what she did, being such a capable aviator, she probably turned around and tried to go back to the nearest land and probably did not make it. So the two most logical explanations for where she would have ended up is that Nikamororu Island, or a little island called Buka, south of New Guinea. Both have interesting witnesses. So one person claims that they have found a plane off of Nikamororu that they say measures out and matches to the same size as an Electra DC-10. On the flip side, off of Buka Island, which less people believe in, but there actually is a living witness to this day who he was 6 years old at the time and said that he was standing on the beach when he saw a silver plane, twin-engine plane that didn't quite make it, crash a few hundred yards off the island and sink. They have done investigations there, and they have found a plane wreck there. They have been unable so far to actually get permits to go in it because they're first divers who have actually gone there. There are bodies.
No way.
And so it's officially recognized as a grave site and has to have special permits for anybody to actually go into the plane itself. It is very possible that is her plane, and her and Fred Noonan's bodies are still there, strapped in, and died right where they crashed.
Quick little tidbit of information right here. So the jet stream was actually first discovered in the 1920s by a Japanese meteorologist, but the term jet stream was coined later in 1939. So it's very possible that, you know, they knew about the jet stream, or more people were knowing about the jet stream. I mean, it's almost 20 years. So you think that information would have got passed along, especially in aviation, how important it is. But it's very possible too, because you said that this took place in 1936, correct?
This is 1937, yes. And
Okay,
and
37.
while things like the trade winds have been known since, you know, the age of exploration, since the days of sail and, you know, 1500s, 1400s, with things like the jet stream and modern aviation routes, you got to remember she was going along the equator, close to the equator, and this was a route that nobody had taken. There's no way to tell what kind of headwind she was flying into, what direction it was pushing her. Ultimately, that's the most logical answer as to what happened.
Huh. I find it kind of fascinating that because of how well known and just like the magnitude of this, I don't understand why there hasn't been like more push to actually go and get the aircraft and the people. I mean, I don't know. Did you read anything, or did you know anything about like the efforts to actually try to go and get the plane and the wreckage and maybe see who it is?
The biggest problem is that most of these searches for her are privately funded by people who are armchair historians. The Buka theory was actually come up with by a lawyer who was just a history buff in his spare time. So it would be like me sitting at home convinced I knew where a buried treasure was, but I don't have the means to go out to Arizona or Nevada and dig it up. It would be something like that. Basically, yeah, you've got a guy sitting in Virginia in an armchair who is convinced he's figured out exactly where, you know, the resting place is. He's done the research. He's talked to the witnesses and people like that, but he's not going to dig up $20 million to get an offshore research vessel to pull up a plane.
I was gonna say, do you think there's any money in like finding it? I mean, like, yeah, okay, obviously, yes, it takes a shit ton of money to go and excavate it from the bottom of the ocean and shit, but do you think there's any sort of reward?
I don't think you would see a return on whatever you invested in it.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't even think you break even, honestly. The way museums take most things, I mean, it's such a rare piece of history, but at the same time,
No demand for it.
right, like who's gonna front money? But like I could see, like the Smithsonian, you know, is something that generally is not paying for exhibitions. It's they're donated and things like that. That's what it was kind of founded on, was what museum is gonna want that for a price that would break even for actually salvaging it?
I guess my thought process behind it would maybe be that if you could show that you were able to find this and recover it, then wouldn't more people be like looking to you and being willing to give you money and donate money to you to go do other things? You know, if you were just an enthusiast about like going and finding and doing these things, but you didn't have the funds for it, if you could fund this one trip, if you were like dead set and you knew where it was, don't you think that like other people would fund you to like go and look for other things because of how you were able to find this?
I mean, I think you're asking for lightning to strike twice. and then you also have to weigh the fact even if this guy was 95% right, the 5% chance that he's wrong, you just flushed millions of dollars down the drain with absolutely nothing, and you're taking it on a guy's word who just reads a lot of books.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
If they could recover like her jacket or something like that, I'm sure somebody would buy that. People are buying the dumbest stuff on the internet right now, and
Oh
paying
my gosh,
ridiculous
yeah.
amounts of stuff for it. But yeah, I don't see the actual cost of what that would take. Right? You'd have to pay how many different people and a vessel and whatever those costs are that associated with getting the permits to do that or whatever. It's probably astronomical for the actual return. But I'm telling you, that they had that jacket. If it wasn't like completely damaged, somebody would buy that.
Oh yeah, but I mean, like by now, there's probably nothing left of like any of the clothes or anything. We're talking what almost
It's coming
over
up on
100,
80,
over 100 years,
90 years.
Yep. You also have to think there's probably still a living estate in her family.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah,
so
yeah.
anything pulled up, you're just grave robbing unless you turn it over.
That's true.
Yeah, very
That's
true. Who owned the plane?
Ooh.
I'm not sure if that was actually privately owned or how that worked, because she insisted specifically on the model plane that was used on the trip. I know it was specially modified. She wanted that specific model, and it was modified to hold extra fuel.
Oh, interesting. Purdue University, apparently. Amelia Earhart's Lockheed Model 10 Electra was owned by Purdue University.
Wow. You know what's interesting with stuff like that? It's like, not to get like ridiculously conspiratorial, but it's like, what if it was purposefully done? What if they miscalculated it on purpose? What if there was like something behind it where they're like, we do not want her to make it because that can derail something else?
Now we're getting into like the whole Titanic conspiracy where they knew it was gonna crash into the iceberg, or they purposefully did that. You bring up a good point. I have not, in your research, Clark, or your findings, is there any sort of conspiracy or anything like that as far as like maybe someone not wanting her to make that trip? Because I guarantee you there's something probably out there about that.
Well, I would actually say 100% the opposite. There's actually a lot of impetus for her to make the trip, and that is because, and I'm sure a listener will bring this up, so I'll go ahead and tackle it. The rumors that she was actually spying for the United States over Japan held territory. You have to think at this point we're less than 4 years away from war with Japan, and Japan is already at war with several countries, including China. That's 1933. They already started invading Manchuria, so they're at war. They're expanding territory, and we know war is coming. It's on the horizon. We just don't know when yet. So there were, I don't want to call it like a myth, really. The fact that people think that she was spying, because she was very close friends with Eleanor Roosevelt, so it would have been nothing for the U.S. government to ask her to put some reconnaissance equipment on her plane as she's flying. And that's another rumor that people think she might have been captured by the Japanese and executed for espionage and things like that. Was she captured? Probably not. She probably, like I said, crashed at sea and died. But was she spying for the United States? And I'm going to actually say, yeah, she probably was. We know for a fact on paper they had asked several pilots that were commercial, just civilian pilots, to spy for them on the Japanese. So a famous aviator like her that was making this round trip, she was going to be there anyway. I think they definitely asked her to. I would think that'd be nothing for them to ask that of her, and she really was at zero risk to do that. She was thinking, so they really, it's no brainer.
Yeah, that's perfect. It's right in your face, right? Nobody's expecting it. And it's like, if I was in power and I'm thinking, okay, this is a perfect opportunity, nobody has to know, right? She's our friend. She's not going to tell anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say there's actually a lot of reasons, especially the U.S. government, would want her to make it back.
I'm looking up the route right now that she was supposed to take, and it looks like she started from Oakland, USA. She went all the way down. It was supposed to go towards Miami, down to Venezuela, then to Brazil, go through Africa. But then it goes all the way up to Pakistan, then to India, then to Thailand, then Singapore, then Indonesia, Australia, to New Guinea, and then it looks like it goes to Hawaii. It seems like she didn't even make it even close to being to Japan.
Have you seen the extraterrestrial abduction theory
Of Amelia Earhart?
Yeah.
No.
it's probably like a small fringe percentage of people that think that, but there are people that think that she was abducted by aliens.
Yeah, there are definitely people who think the lack of a wreck being found is indicative of something supernatural, because there's no possible way that we could lose an airplane in the largest ocean on Earth.
Yeah.
I know, I have not heard the alien abduction theory. That's wild. I was hoping that Clark would say that that's actually what did happen, but unfortunately not.
I always forget. I have to give him the old alien pat on the back. So it was probably actually, that's the spoiler alert for all three of these stories, is alien abduction on all three. It actually could work. Once we hear all of them, we can technically say, or alien abduction on all three.
Well, what is speaking of the other stories, what is I guess the other two stories that you were going to bring up?
Hey guys, Future Haunted here, just cutting in real quick to tell you all about our new friends over at the Subculture podcast. Let's see what they have in store for us.
In this modern world of fractured societies and niche content, dwells an ever-present underbelly that only the few know how to find. Two intrepid voyagers delve into its depths to bring you the inside scoop. This is the Subculture podcast.
Hi, I'm Andrew.
And I'm Joe, and we invite you to join us on a journey of discovery on the Subculture podcast.
That's right. Each episode we'll dig around in a subculture, hidden hobby, or perplexing pastime, and then tell you all about it.
We'll try to find the good, the bad, the outright weird, the sexual, and the why. Why do people do it?
Wait a minute, did you just say sexual?
I did. Comes up more often than you'd think, or like.
Oh boy, nothing stranger than other people, am I right?
You are right. From ASMR to Zodiac believers, it's all going under the microscope.
So head on over to your favorite place for podcasts and search for us by name, the Subculture Podcast. We're on them all. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music. I've even trained 10,000 screaming howler monkeys to yell it into people's windows at night.
Oh, not this again, Andrew. We've talked about the monkeys before.
Again, that was our friends over at the Subculture podcast. If any of that piqued your interest, then you should absolutely give them a follow. I know I already have. And now, back to the episode.
All right, next I'm going to tackle another missing persons case, but this is a number of people missing. This is actually the Mary Celeste.
Mary Celeste.
Mary Celeste.
Yep. It's probably the most famous ghost ship ever.
Oh, yeah.
So the Mary Celeste was actually setting sail in 1872, and it was actually leaving America to go to Genoa, Italy, delivering, well, we'll get to what it was delivering, because that's kind of paramount to my theory here, or should I say what's probably right. There was a brigantine called the De Gracia that found the Mary Celeste off the Azores, which is, if you don't know where a map is, there's a little set of islands west of Europe that you run into called the Azores. It's kind of off the coast of like Portugal and Spain, the Iberian Peninsula. It's far out there, though. It's not like right there close. So just to give you an idea. But it's in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, basically, closer to Europe. This ship finds the Mary Celeste kind of adrift with like some damage to its sails. And so they're kind of curious and they try to hail it. They don't get a response. So they pull up next to it and they end up boarding the Mary Celeste and find out that nobody is on board. The logbooks are still open. There's still dinner on the table. The cargo holds are open, but the cargo is actually intact except for a few damaged crates. Other than the missing lifeboat and a few minor damage to the sails and like some water, I think they said there was a little bit of water in the hold. It was actually completely seaworthy. Nothing was wrong with the boat. It was completely seaworthy. Gonna keep on doing this journey with no crew. So they have no clue what happened to these people. And they end up towing the boat and asking for salvage rights to it. They're like, hey, we found this full of cargo and everything and nobody on board. So immediately people start investigating, saying that, oh, did this crew of the De Gracia, did they actually murder everybody and like dispose of their bodies? But other than like a spot of blood on a knife, nothing is actually found indicating that there was any kind of violence on board or anything like that. They're thinking mutiny, is that a possibility? Alien abduction? Obviously, Bermuda Triangle, people disappeared. Like there's all these possible theories that people are coming up with of where did these people go? How does an entire crew disappear including the captain had his entire family on board. So we're talking like wife and kids too. So it's not something that a guy is easily giving up here. You know, everybody's gone, everybody disappeared, but the boat completely seaworthy condition, just floating with its cargo by itself. Right out the gate, any theories that you guys have on what you think would happen in a situation? What would cause this?
Aliens.
I guess my first thought would be another ship came by and they were able to. Now again, I don't know a whole lot about the story and if this was like, if there's anyone military trained on the vessel or anything like that, or if they had the weapons to or the means to defend themselves. But to me, what I feel like had happened is that like a pirate ship possibly came by and boarded their ship, and rather than taking the cargo, which I guess I don't know why they wouldn't do, or take everything else on board, they just took everybody instead and then left the ship, just kind of like how it was. Because I guess that, to me, it seems like everyone either left in a hurry, because if you're saying that there's still food and dinner on the table and everything, that's, I mean, like, to me, that's what I feel like had happened, is like, it's either someone or another boat came by and got everybody off, or for whatever reason, everyone had to like jump off the boat because of whatever might have happened. I don't think it's weather related. Yeah, it is a head scratcher, because the biggest thing is the cargo. Like if a pirate ship came by, or someone wanted to steal stuff, it's like, why wouldn't you take the cargo as well? And unless the cargo on board wasn't valuable or they didn't need it for whatever reason. Yeah, I don't know. I guess that's my first inkling, is that another boat came by and made everyone get onto theirs.
I would be interested to know if any of the damaged cargo was a box full of dirt. Because that's the kind of thing, you know, I forget what the ship was called that's traditionally thought to have brought Dracula across.
Oh, the Demeter, or the Demeter?
The Demeter, yeah.
Demeter.
But I would assume that everybody got sick, would be my first thing, but there would be bodies.
Unless you're saying, though, like, that's actually kind of smart, is that if people were getting sick and they were just tossing them overboard and they weren't keeping the bodies for whatever reason. I don't know if that's like traditionally what people do, or back in the day if that's what it was, but that sick theory that you're thinking about, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I think historically that's what they do, right? If you have like a incurable illness to save everybody else, it was kind of like your duty to jump. But also, around the same time, it says that there was a huge epidemic. It's called the epizootic, something. Anyway, it was an equine flu. But it's like, how many times does that cross the barrier between animals to humans? And could it have happened? Because that was a huge epidemic that was happening at the exact same time.
Clark, with the research that you found or what you're digging up, with all of these theories that we're throwing out there, is anything put in the captain's log about any of this stuff? Or because you said that there, like, none of the logs were taken or anything like that. So I guess is if someone was sick, it would have written that down. I guess that's why I kind of lean on another ship came by, because I feel like if people were getting sick, something would have been written about it in the logs. Like, all right, 2 people got sick today. You know, we lost 3 members. We threw them overboard to keep everyone else clean, or like the boat healthy, whatever. Was there anything like that?
No entries in the log were odd or out of the ordinary, but the only clue the log gave was that by the time the other ship found them, the last log date had been 10 days before. So we know, and that is a clue. We know that the ship had been adrift by itself, rudderless, for 10 days. So the crew had been missing for probably that long.
Okay, I have another theory. I want to throw one out there right before you tell us.
I'll give you the 3 biggest piece of information, and then you tell me your theory. We know it had been adrift for 10 days. We know that the lifeboat was missing, and the cargo that was intact on the boat, except for 9 damaged barrels, was 1,700 barrels of alcohol.
Okay, I'm thinking that they found an island, or they found like someplace to go. Like they couldn't bring the ship all the way close enough inland, so they got as many people off the boat inland, and then for whatever reason or somehow the boat just kind of like lost its anchor or something like that and then drifted. That's what I'm going with.
Not a bad guess, not completely far off. the most plausible theory of what happened, and as far as I'm concerned, this is what happened. At sea, 9 of these barrels of alcohol were damaged. This would have released alcohol vapor into the cargo hold, which was sealed. At this time, obviously, they're still navigating by candlelight when they go down into the cargo hold. This is 1872. So what most likely happened was a flash fire, a vapor fire from the alcohol. It would have blown the hatches open, or they opened the hatches to try to vent the alcohol fumes. Afraid of another vapor fire or something along those lines, or maybe the vapor fire didn't happen and they just knew the fumes were down there, so they opened the cargo hold. The crew and the family of the captain got into the lifeboat and tried to trail behind the ship to make sure it was safe to reboard, and the Mary Celeste simply pulled away from them and they were unable to catch up. 10 days later, the Mary Celeste is miles away. It gets found, and these poor people are stuck in a little dinghy, lost at sea forever.
Oh.
How many people total were on board?
Yeah.
I believe it was 20 something, 29, 26, somewhere around there. I'd have to let me see. It was, you have about 10, maybe between 10 and 15.
Wow, that is a small crew.
Mm-hmm.
But that would make sense as to why everyone could fit on the dinghy, though, or that boat.
Yeah, for sure.
Because when you said possibly like 20 or 20 plus, I was like, I don't know if that many people could fit on that boat. I mean, granted, I don't know how big those boats were back in the day and how many could fit, but 10 to 15 seems a little bit more plausible for what actually did happen.
The boat itself was 103 feet in length. So
Oh,
to give you an idea,
shit. Okay.
so 3-masted brigantine, 103 feet. It's it's a medium-sized ship, bigger than a schooner, not as big as, a kind of ship of the line for the time.
Yeah, definitely manageable by 10 people, even 5, 6, right?
Mm-hmm. So that's is that what, like, the most plausible what might have happened? Or is there, like, some other conspiracies or, like, other things out there that might have...
Well, salvage rights did end up going to the crew that found the ship adrift. The theory of murder has always kind of persisted. People thought that there was some kind of shady something up to it. But the fact that there was minimal damage to the ship, they brought everything in intact, including the cargo. I mean, they led a full investigation. They brought it to authorities. If you really wanted to, like, be a quote a pirate, take the cargo, burn the ship.
That's yeah, true.
I mean, the fact that they went through all the proper channels and authorities and waited to actually get a payoff for it, seems like they didn't have too much to hide.
That's true. All right. Well, I mean, that is a head scratcher. Again, like, you're bringing up these really old stories. So, again, it's so hard because, like, even if someone wanted to investigate it today, is the ship still intact? Did they, like, dismantle it? Like, is there still, like, can you go actually see this thing, or is it?
No, it's been dismantled for years. I'm certain. Let's see. Last known. Yeah, like I said, they just have that it was paid out. I will say though, this kind of adds to the spooky factor for those who love nautical lore. The Mary Celeste was not its original name, so it was a ship originally called the Amazon and was purchased and renamed the Mary Celeste. So. You're a big fan of nautical lore, it's a big no-no to rename a ship. It's considered bad luck.
Oh, is it?
That kind of adds to the supernatural element for people that want to go that route.
Yeah. Because, I mean, kind of like what I was saying, it's so hard to investigate these sort of things because of just, like, the time. Like, you're just going off historical documentation, and... Again, the ship has been dismantled. It's not even around anymore, so you can't actually go and look at it. Especially, like, people that had nothing to do with, like, the ship or whatever, but, like, cold case files and everything that have been, like, on for years. People have been missing for years and years and years. It's, props to them for investigating that stuff. So I feel like this is the kind of like on the same lines where it's just something we may never truly figure out what happened to the crew.
I think the same way you can compare, like, modern murder mysteries to, like, DNA evidence now being available and
Exactly.
like ancestry stuff now cracking decades old cold cases, because now we have these, like, genealogy websites and stuff that are collecting relatives and stuff to these people that are now being busted as killers, or at least mysteries being solved, or even victims in some cases. I think with this, similar to like the Amelia Earhart, the more we now know about like science, just the scientific meteorology and things like that. And in this case, you know, things about like the alcohol fire, the vapor fire, and things like that. These are things that probably were not taken into consideration during the investigation at the time. These authorities are not calling on experts and stuff like that for being like, oh, what are all the possible, you know, they're taking everything at face value. They're taking detailed notes and documents that we can read now, but they're not considering maybe certain plausible explanations for things like we do now. So I would say that maybe our DNA for unlocking some of these historical mysteries is just the advancement in science and technology and things like that, to where we can now look back on some of these things and say, oh, what they would have written off as this, we now know behaves like this or something, you know, along those lines. So I'd say it's kind of comparative to like cold case files.
But again, it's all theory based. You know what I mean? Where it's like, okay, yes, we do have that technology. We do have like, we can reenact or we can simulate what might have happened. But again, it's all theories. It's not 100% fact. Whereas I feel like the DNA evidence, that is like undisputable fact and everything. So,
I mean, when you say it like that, it's like, it is just as likely that aliens showed up and took everybody with them.
That's where we needed the DNA evidence, is to see, like, we find a triple helix DNA strand or something. We're like, this is human.
So what
Bunch
were
of
the
alcoholic aliens?
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like this is still up for debate with like what might have happened. But was as far as the last story that you have, what's that one about?
So the last story is probably one of the oldest and probably one of the most famous American legends or unsolved mysteries. And I'll say unsolved with quotes because I'm about to shoot holes all through it. And that is the lost colony of Roanoke. So some background on that: in 1585, obviously England is trying to set up a permanent establishment in North America. They've already been beaten to it by the Spanish and the French, and they're trying to play catch up now at this point. They are looking at an area between what is now modern day North Carolina and Virginia, and they pick an island at the time we call Roanoke Island. The expedition is led by a man named John White. He comes over. Obviously, he has his family with him. He has a granddaughter that's born named Virginia Dare. It's the first English-born person in North America. So it's kind of a well-known big deal in American history. And then since they are running low on supplies, John White has to go back to England to get supplies to keep the colony afloat. He goes back. He's stopped because their war breaks out between Spain and England, the famous Spanish Armada, all that, for those who know, 1588. So it takes 3 years before the Spanish are beaten, and he gets to go back. He gets allowed to actually go back to North America, because at the time, like I said, all ships, even private, were commandeered by the English for defense against the Spanish. And so it's finally 1588 before he gets to go back to Roanoke Island. When he gets there, they land. They find the word Croatoan, or some people say Croatan, that's carved into a tree. And the entire colony is gone. Nobody's there. It's like they've packed up and left. They find, I believe, a grave, but nothing to show that there was any kind of like crazy massacre or anything like that. And it just seems like everybody up and disappeared. And that's all they find as far as evidence. And the theories, abound still. Were they massacred? People just disappear into the woods? Did they start killing each other? Did they all get sick and die? Did aliens abduct them?
Yes.
Everything's on the table. So this is obviously one of the most famous American mysteries. So what are your thoughts on this one?
Matthew, why don't you go first?
So this is while they were trying to claim land in America, right? It's like, first of all, was this guy a Freemason? Do we know? Is there a way to know?
I do not know for certain. I could probably find out. I mean, he was a cartographer. He's a map maker. So I mean, he did use a compass and
Yeah.
at some point. He probably used a ruler and a compass. That's all I'm going to say. But
I'd be interested to know. And then they don't know who was there. The native indigenous population at the time, what were they doing? How close were they? Do we even know if there were people around?
So yes, in fact, Croatoan was the name of a nearby tribe that lived on an island So the fact that they left that carved into the tree, some people assume that they were attacked by them and had to flee, or obviously that they might have gone off with them or intermarried with them or something like that. But something happened for a reason they carved this word Croatoan into the tree.
How long he was gone?
He was gone for 3 years.
3 years. Wow.
3 years.
And, I live on the Gulf Coast of Texas, and we have these massive storms that roll through. And I know it isn't quite so severe on the eastern seaboard, but could something like that have possibly rolled through that we have no record of?
Absolutely. Definitely a ton of Atlantic hurricanes hit that side. In fact, a storm also almost blew them off course just getting back to Roanoke Island on the return trip.
And last question, do they have an approximate amount of time that they were missing for before he discovered that they were gone?
Do not know. He went back to supplies, 3 years passed, no correspondence. He comes back and they're gone.
That's interesting. Yeah, I wouldn't even know what to point to. I guess having that carved into a tree is kind of indicative of something, but we don't know what. Obviously, it indicates something, but what, we don't know.
So I'm looking up diseases in the 1500s that were around, and we have smallpox, measles, influenza, dysentery, yellow fever, malaria, scarlet fever, typhoid fever. Those are just to name a few. I would like to say that that's how many people were left behind?
I believe there were, let's see,
120 or something like that, right?
roughly 115, so 120. Yeah, that's about right.
Okay.
I just feel like the ability to fight off sicknesses and diseases back in the day was not a thing. To me, if someone gets sick, I mean, even nowadays, if someone gets sick, I feel like even if like someone coughs like 50 feet away from me, I feel like I'm going to get sick. I have a terrible immune system, especially back in the 1500s. There wasn't like medicine that we have today. Yeah, there was herbal stuff, and it probably did help, but shit, smallpox, you're not gonna fix that with tea and everything. So I just feel like 3 years is a long time. Honestly, it could have been a handful of things that might have, maybe a few diseases wiped out. Maybe some people got fed up and didn't think that whoever was going to come back. I feel like there could be a number of things that contributed to everybody leaving. Maybe it was something where a bunch of people got sick and a lot of people died, and the people that did live, or whatever, were like, all right, hey, this is not a good place, we have to leave. And maybe they just left, and then maybe the whole scribe on the tree, maybe that was there before they even got there. Who knows? Or maybe it was something where everyone had already left, and that's when someone came by and just scribbled it into a tree. I mean, shit, people carve things into trees all the time or graffiti things up for no rhyme or reason. Maybe that was just coincidence, or maybe someone was trying to frame the Native American tribe, make it seem like they were up to no good when they really were doing nothing. I don't know. It's I feel like there could be a number of things, because again, it's just that at that time frame, so many things could have happened, and multiple things could have happened within 3 years to make everyone disappear. Those are my thoughts. I'm not giving you a direct answer, but I feel like a number of things could have contributed to why so many people, or why everyone left.
Well, yeah, and kind of a combination. The answer is, like I said, really obvious. So talking about the indigenous people, Croatoan were the nearby tribe on what is now modern-day Hatteras Island. They had the best relationship of the nearby tribes with the people. There had been some mishaps here and there, but generally they were the most helpful, most trusted, and they traded pretty regularly with them. So this is where it gets almost laughably obvious. The legend goes that we have no clue why they left the word Croatoan carved into the tree, when in fact we know exactly why they had it carved into the tree. It was a signal to John White to say, if something happens while you're away, we're going to go join up with the Croatoans and live on Hatteras Island. We're going to leave Roanoke Island and go to what's now Hatteras Island, or the island they called at the time Croatoan for the people. So John White leaves, goes get supplies, gets held up for 3 years. He comes back. He is literally like bubble gum and popsicle sticks at this time trying to get back because his person who's financing this expedition is Sir Walter Raleigh, who gets arrested for treason and beheaded not long after this.
Shit.
So the money's running out. The crew is disgruntled. The storm that hits them and knocks them off course severely delays them even further. So by the time they get back to Roanoke Island, the crew is ready to give up. They get there. They see nobody's there. They see Croatoan in the tree. John White says, "Oh, let's go there and look for them." And the crew says, "Hell no, we're going back to England. You had your chance. We got here. They're gone. So are we." So John White literally at risk of getting left on the island by himself, by his crew, gets on the boat and goes back to England and tells everybody about the mystery of how the colony is a disaster. Everybody disappeared. They probably died. The colony's a failure. Sir Walter Raleigh's out on the money. He gets arrested. He loses his head. And that's pretty much end of story. And the legend goes on that this colony just disappeared overnight, when in fact what happened is they were starving. They didn't have all day to wait on John White to come back after the war. So they shacked up with the nearest Native Americans, intermixed with them, and the rest is history. Quite literally, the rest is history. In 1607, obviously, we get the first English permanent settlement in Jamestown, Virginia. And their first dealings with the Native Americans, they are told, and there are records of this in the Jamestown records, where they're told, hey, there are people that look just like you guys south of here, living on an island. They literally write it off. They said, oh, that's crazy. You guys have blonde hair, blue-eyed Native Americans? Cool. And nobody thinks to question it. So these people literally are thriving for 20 years, shacked up with the Croatoan, and the people in Jamestown know about it. Don't go investigate. Just say, oh, that's neat, and go about their lives. And the lost colony of Roanoke probably just keeps intermixing. I don't want to assume, but it's probably the modern day Melungeon people, which trace their heritage back to an intermixing of African, Native American, and white settlers. And they trace their history back to coastal North Carolina into Tennessee and Appalachia. So it makes sense that, yeah, these people just settled down and mixed in and just kind of lived out until it was no longer an English settlement. It was just life, people surviving.
So this, to me, this is crazy because it's like, okay, in the 1600s, we have documentation of them saying that. So like, why is there even conspiracy, or why is there any like, why is this even like a topic of conversation as far as like, okay, what happened to the settlers of Roanoke Island? Why isn't it like, no, this is what happened, and we do have proof? Why is there, I guess, why is this, people are still scratching their heads about this one?
Like we said in the Lavinia Fisher episode, don't let the facts get in the way of a good story.
True. All right.
So yeah, that's 3 American legends that are kind of laughably easy when you think about it logically to solve. Or we could say aliens took everybody, but
that's what I'm going with.
But I just say these mysteries are a lot more plausibly solvable than what they're given credit for.
I think of all 3 stories, the one that the Roanoke Island one, I feel like is yes. What you had brought up, yes. I feel like that is the logical answer. We don't have to sit here and talk about it. The Amelia Earhart one, yes. I feel like that is, you gave a good explanation and plausible. We don't have to talk about this one anymore. The Mary Celeste, I feel still like on the edge with like, that one I don't feel like is set in stone as far as like, this is what happened. I still feel like that one could be debated as to what might have happened. Not to say fully like what you said isn't what happened, but I feel like there's still room for maybe a little interpretation. But I feel like the Amelia Earhart one, Roanoke Island one are pretty set in stone, logically thinking that's what happened. So I feel like as far as, ruining history and everything like that, I think I can still hold on to the Mary Celeste.
Another point about the Mary Celeste, isn't it like really bad luck to have women aboard?
Yes, that's another nautical lore thing.
Yeah.
Right. So couldn't it have been something where like the crew, especially if it was like a seafaring crew, if they like completely revolted against them and like ended up taking off with everybody?
Ooh.
Why would you hedge your bets on a lifeboat when you have a perfectly good working ship that you could take a right and go towards North Africa or somewhere?
See, now
Or-
this is where the conspiracy would get really muddy, but it's like, well, what if they conspired with another ship?
Well, then they would have had to. It had tight lips, I guess, because first, why leave the Mary Celeste floating with all its cargo? Once
I mean,
again,
because it's small and they're not going to do anything with it.
I mean,
But they could take these women, do
one-
whatever.
The captain's wife. Let's get one.
Oh, yeah. I thought it was like two.
Was that the only woman on board? Was the captain's wife?
Yeah, I believe the children. He may have had a daughter, but both children were very young. We're talking like 10 or younger.
Oh,
Okay. Well, yeah, probably not that important to people, I guess, but who knows? Who knows what happened?
I mean, that's why it's always.
It's probably the most obvious answer, though.
Yeah. Well, Clark, those were really good stories you'd brought up. I'm glad that you had, because again, like the whole Roanoke Island one, I remember hearing about it, but I never really like dug into it. I might have seen like a Reddit post about it, so thanks for bringing that one up. Amelia Earhart, I knew that one. Pretty much everyone kind of hears about that growing up. Mary Celeste, again, I think I've seen a couple of Reddit posts lately about that one. I think I was going to toss that in a fishbowl and talk about that, but we already talked about it, so probably won't add that one into the mix. But no, thanks for bringing those up.
No problem. I look forward to ruining some more legends and ghost stories in the future.
Sounds good. You as the audience member, if you liked what you heard, stick around. We got plenty more coming at you. Again, we're probably thinking about making this a little series that we have going on. I really enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed it. Matthew, thank you for coming on and guesting with us. Do you have anything that you want to throw out to the audience before we sign off?
I know that we had discussed maybe doing a plug, but I think if you're going to have me back, we can prepare something for later. So at this point, nothing really definitive, but
Okay.
if I come back on for sure, I will definitely have something better prepared that we can throw out there.
Awesome. Cool. Well, we really enjoyed you having you on and everything like that. You're more than welcome to come by again anytime.
Absolutely.
And Clark, do you have anything for the audience members?
No, thank you for listening to me ramble.
Awesome. Cool. And just remember that old saying that we have here, we don't want stuff that's normal. We want stuff that's effing weird.